Imagine stepping onto a first-class flight in a simple cotton dress, only to be met with laughter, whispers, and mocking stares from those dripping in diamonds. In designer suits, they think you do not belong there. They think you are nothing. But what if the woman they laughed at held a secret that could silence the entire cabin? What if the man waiting for her at their destination owned the very airline they were flying on? By the end of this flight, those who mocked her would sit, frozen in shame, because respect once denied was about to be taught in a way they would never forget. Watch till the end. Because this is not just a story about wealth. It is a story about dignity, power, and a lesson that money cannot buy. Asterisk, the hum of the airplane filled the cabin. Overhead lights glowed softly, reflecting off polished leather seats the scent of expensive. Perfume drifted through the air. Laughter echoed from the first-class section. A woman in a simple cotton dress walked down the aisle. Her sandals tapped gently against the floor. She clutched a small handbag to her chest. Passengers exchanged smirks. Woman in a diamond necklace whispered behind her hand. The man beside her chuckled loudly. The simple woman lowered her gaze, moved quietly. She reached her seat near the front of first class. A flight attendant raised an eyebrow at her. The woman's voice was soft as she asked for help. The attendant guided her politely, but with a forced smile. She sat down, smoothing her plain dress over her knees. The laughter from behind grew louder. Someone muttered that she must be in the wrong section. Another voice joked about her outfit. She adjusted her handbag and looked out the window. The runway lights glimmered. In the distance, the flight attendant returned with a glass of water. Her tone was polite, but her eyes flickered with doubt. The simple woman thanked her with a gentle nod. The cabin doors closed, and the plane began to taxi. Passengers pulled out their phones, some glancing at her again. A man leaned over to whisper to his companion. Both laughing quietly, she remained calm, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. The captain's voice crackled through the intercom, greeting the passengers. There was a pause, and then his voice grew warmer. He spoke her name with affection. Announcing a special welcome, every head turned toward her seat. The woman smiled faintly. Reaching into her handbag, she pulled out a sleek black phone, its screen lighting up. The passengers watched as she pressed a single button. A deep male voice answered almost immediately. "Everything is ready for your flight," he said. A murmur rippled through the cabin. The man in the designer suit sat straighter. The woman in diamonds stopped whispering. The flight attendant stiffened, her eyes wide. The simple woman spoke softly, her voice steady. "I am on board. The passengers are settled." "Yes," the voice replied. "The crew has been briefed." Someone gasped quietly from behind her. She turned, her eyes calm but sharp. The whispers had stopped. The captain made another announcement, his tone different now. He introduced her by name, adding one detail that made the cabin silent. "She is the wife of the owner of this airline." The laughter vanished. The passengers who had mocked her sat frozen. The man in the expensive suit lowered his head. The woman in diamonds clutched her necklace. The flight attendant's polite smile turned into a nervous grin. The simple woman sat, quietly folding her hands in her lap. The hum of the engines filled the heavy silence. A man nearby coughed awkwardly. His face flushed. A young woman stared at her with wide eyes. She looked away, her cheeks burning with shame. The simple woman glanced at her phone again. Her husband's voice came through, calm and reassuring. "Everything is perfect. They will treat you with respect now." She slipped the phone back into her bag, her expression serene. The first-class cabin felt smaller, tighter, as if the air itself had grown heavier. Passengers shifted in their seats, avoiding her gaze. The flight attendant returned, bowing slightly as she offered a drink. "Would you like something special, ma'am?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The simple woman accepted with a soft smile. Crystal glasses clinked as the attendant poured champagne. A man at the back of the section clenched his fists, his face pale. He had been the loudest to mock her. Earlier, she sipped her drink calmly, her gaze fixed ahead. The engines roared as the plane lifted into the sky. The man's wife whispered something in his ear. He glanced at the simple woman nervously. Another passenger tried to strike up a friendly conversation. She turned politely, her smile gentle but distant. The whispers had turned into a tense silence. Even the hum of the engines seemed louder than before. A flight attendant appeared again, her posture straighter than before. She leaned in carefully, asking if the woman needed anything else. The woman shook her head softly. Her calmness made the cabin feel even colder. The man in the expensive suit cleared his throat. He stood, adjusting his tie, and approached her seat. "I apologize," he muttered, his voice strained. She looked up, her gaze steady, unblinking. He stumbled over his words, glancing back at the other passengers. "I did not realize who you were." The woman tilted her head slightly. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried weight. "Would you have treated me differently if I were no one?" His jaw tightened, and his face flushed. He returned to his seat without answering. The silence grew heavier. A child seated nearby fidgeted nervously, sensing the tension. The woman rested her hands in her lap again. She gazed out the window, watching the clouds drift past. The other passengers shifted uncomfortably, unable to escape the moment. Diamond-clad woman finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Your dress. It is lovely," she offered weakly. The simple woman turned to her, expression unreadable. "Thank you," she replied, her tone polite yet distant. The compliment hung in the air, hollow and forced. The diamond-clad woman quickly turned away. Pretending to adjust her bracelet, the crew moved through the cabin with exaggerated care now. Each attendant bowed slightly when passing her seat. The passengers whispered to each other in hushed tones. They spoke carefully, their laughter replaced with uneasy murmurs. The simple woman closed her eyes briefly, resting her head back. Her breathing was slow, steady, while the rest of the cabin buzzed with nervous energy. Suddenly, a crew member knelt beside her seat. "Ma'am, your husband has requested to speak with you again," she said softly. The woman nodded and accepted the call. His voice came through the phone, calm yet commanding. "Is everything comfortable?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "Very comfortable." "Good," he said. "The staff is aware. They will make sure you are treated with respect." The man in the expensive suit shifted in his seat, glancing nervously at her again. Another passenger muttered an apology from across the aisle. The simple woman acknowledged him with a slight nod, saying nothing. The tension in the air was thick enough to feel. No one dared to laugh anymore. The first-class cabin, once full of arrogance, was now silent and heavy with shame. The woman reached into her handbag and retrieved a small velvet pouch. She opened it gently, revealing a golden pin bearing the airline's crest. The crest glimmered under the soft cabin lights. Every attendant who saw it stopped and bowed respectfully. Passengers stared in stunned silence, realizing what it meant. The simple woman calmly pinned it to her dress. A man in the back shifted uncomfortably. His breathing quickened. She looked up, her gaze scanning the cabin slowly. Eyes darted away, no one meeting her stare. The engines hummed steadily as she adjusted the pin on her dress. A soft click echoed in the cabin as she fastened it securely. Her hands moved with grace, deliberate and calm. The flight attendant nearest to her bowed her head again. "Ma'am," she whispered, "shall I bring you your preferred meal early?" The woman's lips curved into a faint smile. "That will be fine," she said softly. Every word felt like a command now, though her tone was gentle. The passengers around her straightened in their seats. No one dared to speak, above a whisper. She glanced slowly from one face to another. The man in the expensive suit looked away quickly. The diamond-clad woman fidgeted with her ring nervously. The simple woman's gaze lingered on them both for a moment. Her calm expression never changed. "I heard your laughter earlier," she said quietly. The words cut through the silence. Like a blade, both passengers froze. A nervous cough came from another seat. "I wonder," she continued, her voice steady and soft, "if my dress had been silk, would you have laughed?" Her question hung in the air. No one spoke. She folded her hands. The engines roared gently as the plane cut through the clouds. She looked back toward the window, her face serene. The hum of whispers started again, low and uneasy. The diamond-clad woman cleared her throat softly. "I was out of line," she murmured. Her voice trembled as she spoke. The simple woman turned her head slowly. "You were," she said, calm and composed. The woman in diamonds nodded quickly, looking down at her lap. Another passenger, a younger man, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He leaned forward slightly, trying to catch her attention. I am sorry as well," he said. She gave him a polite nod, offering no words in return. The tension grew heavier with every passing second. The flight attendant returned, carrying a tray draped in white linen. On it sat an elegant silver plate, covered with a dome. She placed it gently in front of the simple woman, bowing again. The other passengers stared at the lavish service, their shame deepening. The woman removed the cover, revealing a perfectly prepared gourmet meal. She picked up her fork delicately and began to eat in silence. No one dared to disturb her. The once arrogant laughter had been replaced with uneasy stillness. The engines hummed like a warning in the background. A passenger shifted in his seat, the sound loud in the quiet cabin. Another flight attendant approached her seat cautiously. "Your husband says he may join you at your destination," she said softly. The simple woman raised an eyebrow. "Tell him I look forward to it," she replied calmly. The attendant bowed and walked away quickly. Passengers exchanged worried glances. A few of them whispered nervously, their voices trembling. She took another sip from her crystal glass, her hand steady. The cabin lights flickered softly, illuminating her face. Her calm demeanor was more unsettling than anger. She set her fork down gently and folded her napkin. Then she turned in her seat, facing the others. "I was raised to be kind," she said softly, "but kindness should never be mistaken for weakness." The word struck harder than any scolding could. "No," one dared to respond. The silence was suffocating. Even the flight attendant stood a little straighter. Eyes lowered. The woman reached into her bag again, pulling out a slim leather case. She placed it on the tray in front of her and opened it slowly. Inside lay a gold-embossed badge bearing the airline's seal. Passengers leaned forward, trying to see. The man in the expensive suit paled. He recognized the insignia instantly. She lifted the badge carefully, holding it between two fingers. Its polished surface caught the cabin lights, sending a soft gleam across the rows of seats. The air seemed to grow colder as every eye locked on her. "This badge," she said softly, "is only given to one person." Her voice was calm, yet it carried through the entire cabin. The man in the expensive suit swallowed hard, his face pale. She turned the badge slowly, letting the emblem glimmer. "It represents ownership," she continued. Her gaze swept over the passengers. "My husband built this airline from nothing." The woman in diamonds shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "He worked day and night so that you may fly in comfort," she added. Her tone remained soft, yet her words struck like a hammer. "And yet," she said, pausing slightly, "you chose to mock his wife." The silence was absolute now. No one moved. No one breathed too loudly. She set the badge down gently on the tray. The soft click of it touching the silver was deafening. "I dress simply," she said, her eyes calm and sharp. "Not because I lack wealth, but because I do not need it to feel important." Her words sank into the air like stones in water. The diamond-clad woman lowered her head, her necklace glinting under the soft light. The man in the suit looked away, his hands trembling slightly. The simple woman leaned back in her seat, her expression serene. She lifted her glass again. Taking a slow sip, the sound of the engines filled the uneasy silence. Then she spoke again, her voice softer but even more commanding. "I have no anger toward you," she said. "I only hope that one day you will understand what respect truly means." A faint shiver ran through the cabin. The tension was suffocating, heavy and unrelenting. The flight attendant closest to her bowed deeply. "Ma'am, may I bring you anything else?" she asked, her voice shaking. The woman smiled faintly, her gaze never leaving the passengers. No, she said gently. I believe they have already brought me enough. A ripple of shame moved through the cabin like a wave. A man at the back cleared his throat. Muttering a shaky apology, another followed, his voice barely audible. Soon, soft apologies whispered through the entire section. The simple woman listened quietly, her face unreadable. She placed her glass back on the tray, her fingers steady. Then she leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp as glass. Words are easy, she said softly. Respect is proven in silence. Her words sent another chill through the air. The man in the suit's hands clenched tightly in his lap. The diamond-clad woman avoided her gaze. Blinking rapidly, the flight attendant stepped back, bowing again before retreating. No one spoke. No one dared to laugh. The engines roared softly. Carrying the plane higher into the dark sky, asterisk, a soft chime rang through the cabin, drawing every eye upward. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm yet firm. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, we have a special message from the owner of this airline. Passengers stiffened, exchanging nervous glances. The simple woman rested her chin on her hand, her expression unreadable. A deep, commanding voice replaced the captain's. Good evening, the voice said. I understand my wife is on this flight. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Some passengers shifted uncomfortably, their earlier arrogance melting into fear. I expect her journey to be peaceful. The voice continued, smooth but sharp. Any disrespect shown toward her is disrespect toward me. The words echoed like thunder in the small space. The man in the expensive suit closed his eyes, his face pale. The diamond-clad woman's hands trembled as she gripped her armrest. I built this airline with respect as its foundation. The voice went on. And tonight, I expect that respect to be honored. The intercom clicked off, leaving a ringing silence. The simple woman lifted her glass again. Taking a calm sip, every attendant in the cabin bowed slightly when they passed her. The other passengers sat rigid, their shame painted on their faces. She set her glass down, her fingers brushing the gold badge again. Her eyes swept over the rows of silent faces. Her gaze stopped on the man in the suit. You were laughing the loudest, she said softly. He froze, his throat tightening. Yes, I was wrong, he stammered. She tilted her head slightly, her expression calm but cutting. Do you always measure worth by appearance? She asked. His lips parted, but no words came. The cabin felt colder than before. Every breath heavy, the simple woman's gaze moved to the woman in diamonds. And you, she said softly, do you laugh often at strangers? The diamond-clad woman's lips trembled. No, ma'am, she whispered, her voice cracking. The woman's serene face softened only slightly. She turned back to the window. The world outside swallowed in clouds. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, calm and unshaken. The engines hummed steadily. A rhythm of dominance in the silence. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, their pride stripped away. The attendants moved with extreme care, their heads slightly bowed. One approached with another tray, lowering it gently. Your husband asked us to prepare this for you, she said softly. The woman's lips curved into a faint smile. She accepted the tray, uncovering a flawless dessert plated with precision. The man in the back seat clenched his fists in shame, his earlier mocking laughter echoing in his own mind. The woman savored a spoonful slowly, bothered by the heavy atmosphere. The man in the suit leaned forward suddenly, his voice shaking. Please, he whispered. I am truly sorry. Her gaze shifted toward him slowly, cold and calculating. You are sorry, she said softly, but not for your actions. You are sorry because you were caught. The man lowered his head, shame burning in his face. She placed her spoon neatly on the tray and dabbed her lips with the napkin. The tension in the cabin was thick, yet her calm voice broke through it. I am not here to humiliate anyone, she said softly, her gaze sweeping over the passengers. I simply wanted a quiet journey. Her words carried no anger, only quiet strength. She reached for the badge again, holding it for a brief moment before placing it gently back in its case. "This badge," she said, "does not make me more valuable than any of you. But it does remind me of the responsibility my husband and I have to create a place where all people are treated with dignity." Several passengers lowered their eyes, their shame deepening. She looked toward the man in the suit, whose face was red with embarrassment. "Do better," she said gently. "That is all I ask." The man nodded quickly, unable to meet her gaze. The woman in diamonds whispered an apology, tears brimming in her eyes. The simple woman offered her a kind smile. The first genuine warmth she had shown. "There is no need for fear," she said softly. "Respect is free. You should never need wealth to give it." The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed. A calm settled over the cabin. Heavier than before, but no longer suffocating, the attendants moved with renewed grace, their smiles genuine now, not forced. One knelt beside her seat and whispered, "It is an honor to serve you, ma'am." She nodded graciously, resting her hands in her lap, as the plane glided smoothly through the night sky. The atmosphere shifted completely. Where there had been arrogance, there was now humility. Where there had been mockery, there was respect. The passengers sat quietly, their shame transformed into reflection. The simple woman gazed out the window. Watching the stars glitter above the clouds, she wore no jewels, no designer gown, yet her presence filled the cabin with more power than wealth ever could